This is a deck building video for Marvel Champions living card game, specifically a Spider Woman build that uses Avenger allies from both the aggression and the leadership aspect. Let's get into the deck build. First, take all the Spider Woman hero cards. Next, we're going to go into our basic resources, one copy of Energy, Genius, and Strength. What's so cool about Spider Woman is that we can include two different resource cards, one for each aspect. So we're going to have two copies of the Power of Aggression. Our general cards and our survival cards are going to be one copy of Helicarrier, Avengers Mansion, Quinn Carrier, Avengers Tower. Then for survival, one copy of Downtime, one copy of Endurance. Some of our unique aggression cards are going to be one copy of Combat Training, one copy of the Hall of Heroes, and next we're going to get into a bunch of different unique allies. If you want, go ahead and skip ahead in the video, and there is a list of all the cards that are in this deck, and you can go ahead and pause the video. It's a lot easier to see. One copy of Hercules, Sentry, She-Hulk, Valkyrie, Tigra, Hulk, and Spider-Girl. Next, we're going to move on to our leadership aspect cards. One copy of the Triskelion, two copies of the Power of Leadership, two copies of Make the Call. Next, we're going to get into our unique allies. One copy of Vision, Goliath, Hawkeye, U.S. Agent, Wonder Man, and the other Hawkeye, which is going to be Kate Bishop. A quick note on Jessica Drew. One of the coolest aspects of this new hero is that you can mix two different aspects together. The only deck building requirements is that you have to have an equal number of those aspects. So in this case, there are 11 aggression cards mixed with 11 leadership cards in the deck. You can do a whole bunch of different combos with Jessica Drew. The one thing I really liked about this combo is that every single ally in the deck is an Avenger, so it's kind of thematic. She is obviously a shield spy, but when she flips to her hero form, she is an Avenger as well. So you kind of have a cool Avenger-style deck. And what makes this deck work so well is that it has a lot of resources. So you can constantly be bringing out allies, putting them onto the table, and using them to thwart, attack, or defend and soak up damage. So with the high number of allies in this deck, and the cool ability to mix two different aspects of allies together, it really has a unique feel when you're playing it. It works very, very well. Very easy to play from the perspective of you win. It's a little bit difficult to play if you don't have a good understanding of a lot of the allies. So that could be a little bit confusing sometimes because every single ally coming out is different and unique. So basically the board is changing almost every turn and you kind of have to keep up with it. But if you've been playing this game for a while, it feels really good because you understand what most of the allies do at this point, and some of the newer ones you're going to learn, and that's going to be great. Let's go over your sort of opening hand strategy. So I'm going to focus on a couple cards and then some couple generic ones. Obviously, Quinn Carrier and Helicarrier, those are great cards for resource management. Anytime you get those in your opening hand or you get those in a mulligan action, that's fantastic as well. Next, we're going to focus on two Spider Woman unique cards. The first one is Jessica Drew's Apartment. Why you want to get this out is that you can look through the top 5 cards of your deck for an aspect card. Remember that those will be any of the aggression or any of the leadership cards. So it's a really fantastic way to dig through your deck and get the cards that you want, specifically some of the allies that you need to play. The only downside to this is it's an alter ego action, so you can't use it in hero form. Secondarily, and I love these finesse cards, there are 2 copies of finesse in the hero pack. You can exhaust finesse to generate a wild resource for an aspect card. So remember, we're going to have 22 different aspect cards in the deck, and typically allies are a little bit on the higher end when you bring them out, so a lot of them have 3, 4, or more resources needed to bring them out. So you can use these finesse cards to generate resources for allies. I think that's fantastic. It's a great way to build up a huge army of allies very quickly. Next up, we're going to talk about survival for this deck. Jessica Drew has 11 hit points, which is sort of in the midpoint range. We're going to throw one copy of Downtime, one copy of Endurance into the deck to increase the sort of basic survivability. Next up, we have a great card called Pheromones. There's 2 copies of this. This is a Spider Woman specific hero card. You can stun and confuse an enemy. And typically what I do when I see this card is it's great to hit the villain with it. So you can stun the villain so you're not soaking up a lot of that, really nasty combat damage. And then secondarily, when you go to your recovery phase, you have one turn to recover while the enemy's confused, so you're not going to soak up a lot of threats. The next one is there's 2 copies of the Contaminant Immunity card in the deck. This is great too. You're going to heal 3 hit points from Spider Woman, and you can give her a tough status card. So once again, this is just going to enhance the survivability of Spider Woman. The other great thing about this deck is that you have a ton of allies. So if you get kind of low on hit points, you can throw one of your allies in to block, so you can soak up a lot of damage there. This deck has 14 allies total. As I mentioned before, every single one of them is an Avenger. So with having that many in your deck, you need to increase the amount of them that you can put out onto the table. The Triskelion is a way for you to increase this limit by 1, as is the Avengers Tower. Note on the Avengers Tower that each of your allies has to have the Avenger trait. But that's fine because all 14 allies in the deck have the Avenger trait. So don't worry about it. You don't even have to think about it. The way this deck is constructed, everything's an Avenger. So what's great about this, throw both of these cards out and your ally limit is at 5, which is pretty crazy. So you can have some really out of control turns when you're using your hero and 5 allies all on the same turn. So you have a lot of different things that you can do. You can thwart, do damage, or a combination of the two, so it's a really great combo. A quick note about Spider Woman. She gets more effective when you play out multiple different aspects on one turn. Now her deck actually has all 4 aspects built into it, so her hero cards, there are 2 cards of every aspect in the Spider Woman deck. Every time you play one of those out, it's going to give her a +1 bonus to thwart attack and defense until the end of the round. Now, that's not the player turn, that's the end of the round, so that gives you a lot of flexibility. So let's say you play 2 different aspect cards out. That means that all of her base sort of ability scores are going to go up by +2 until the end of the round, and that means until the villain acts as well. So if you have kind of one of those turns where maybe you're a little bit low on life, you can also defend with her, which is great. We're going to go through some of Spider Woman's other aspect cards. So she has 2 copies of Venom Blast and 2 copies of Inconspicuous in the deck. Venom Blast is a very typical sort of 5 damage, 2 cost aggression event, an attack action, so to speak. And then Inconspicuous, I really like this card, and there's 2 copies of this in the deck as well, is that you can remove 3 threat from any number of schemes in play. I can't tell you how many times you're playing this game, and there's maybe 1 sort of threat left on a scheme or a side scheme, and you're going to thwart for 2 or 3 points, so it almost feels like you're wasting those points. So Inconspicuous is a great way to whittle down multiple side schemes and schemes on the same turn. I really like that card a lot. In addition, the Spider Woman set also comes with 3 copies of Self-Propelled Glide, which allows you to ready her. So think of it this way, you want to play a lot of your different aspect cards at the front end of the turn so that she gets those bonuses. So for every aspect card that you play of a different suit, so to speak, you get a +1 to all of her basic ability scores. So you want to do those first, and then you want to act with her. Then using Self-Propelled Glide, you can ready her one more time and then do it again, because she already has all those bonuses. So oftentimes you can play out 2 different aspect cards. It's pretty common that this happens. So she has a +2 bonus. So let's say you just need to thwart a little bit or do an attack. This is great. It allows you to ready and then exhaust her yet another time. So always try to play your aspect cards on the front end. That allows you to then play Self-Propelled Glide on the back end. I'm not going to go through all of the allies in the deck, but I put them all out on the table so you can see there's a ton of them. And there's a lot of different cool and powerful allies that you can put out. What makes this deck so much fun is that it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. You're losing some of the allies due to consequential damage, or they are defending and soaking up damage for you. In addition to that, you're constantly bringing out new ones. So literally every turn is kind of different. It's exciting and it's a lot of fun. It's great when you hit your turn, you start looking at all the different things that you can do. It's really, really fun. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult if you don't know all the allies all that well. So if you're sort of new to playing allies, especially 14 of them all in one deck, and they're all different, This is something that I just recommend. Look before you start doing any sort of actions or exhausting anything. You can find these cool different synergistic combos between all the different allies. In addition, there's 2 copies of Make the Call in this deck as well, so you can recycle some of your allies. Some of your heavier, more powerful allies, why wait to go through your deck before they get shuffled back in? Go ahead and use Make the Call and bring them out. The other great thing about Make the Call, it's an aspect card, so you can use it to buff Spider Woman. And what's great about it is she gets the +1 bonus and it doesn't cost you anything. So really, to sum it up for allies, it's a lot of fun and I highly recommend trying it. I want to thank you for spending your time with me again today. Hopefully you've seen some cool tips and tricks on building your own Spider Woman decks. The thing I really like about Spider Woman, there are a ton of different combos that you can do, different aspects. So before I built this deck, I tried several of the other aspect combos, and you have a total crazy amount of variety that you can throw into the Spider Woman builds. So if you like and see a cool combo, let me know the 2 different aspects that you used, and maybe give me some tips and tricks on what you figured out for cool deck building ideas. Thanks again for your time, and as always, have fun gaming.